Welcome back, Power Users. I'm David Sparks, and joined as always by Mr. Stephen Robles. Stephen, how is life over there in Florida?
Life is wonderful. It's a little rainy outside. You might hear some thunder, but I'm so excited for today's gifts.
Yeah,
David.
because we have the original Mac Power Users guest back on the show. Welcome, Merlin Mann.
Hello, friends.
Merlin, can I just say, I want to give you just a few flowers because I've listened to every episode of Roderick on the Line, many of them twice. You have brought me through some tough times, given me joy, given me tools to help my kids with
You
anxiety.
can get that in Florida?
We got it all in Florida, so just thank you for your work. And you were even a guest on my little movie podcast many years ago.
Which one was
so
I?
Thank you. You did The Aviator from Movies on the Side.
Oh.
And you were. I had, before YouTube, before
Well,
all
I got
that
my
stuff.
paddles right here in case I need to go to the bathroom. I have a way to, I have an operational towel for one spigot and then
That's
the
it.
control one for the other, and then I've got one in the chamber. Thank you
And
so
you-
much for having me on. I'm really excited
Yes.
to visit with you guys.
And you post about so many different AI tools. I'm very curious to ask what you use with what, because I can never get a read on it. You talk about Chatty, but then you talk about Chatty fixing Claude. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, sure. Is that cool?
I want to put my flowers on the table too, though.
Okay.
Hi, David. Long
Hi,
time no see,
Merlin.
buddy.
We
I knew you when we were younger.
yeah, back when we had not gray hair. Yeah,
Hey, you both still got hair, so I mean, you guys are doing great.
yeah. There we go.
I like to consider myself distinguished, and
So
I'm socializing that amongst my friends.
16 years ago, we were working on this show, and we were tired of talking about the stuff we did. And I said, I want to get some interesting guests on. I was at Macworld at the time, and I bumped into you at a booth, and you didn't know me from anybody, and you agreed to come on the show. You were the very first guest. I looked it up, Mac Power Users 23.
Was it snooty with you? Was I really kind of off?
You were
with
so generous, and it was
Yeah,
great.
I got to be honest with you. That is just a blur of cocaine for me.
Yeah,
that
well,
entire time.
it
I mean,
worked
if I
for me.
seemed enthusiastic, David, that is
Yeah.
I owe you an amends. I don't even know what step that is. I'm so gacked out on coke at this point. I don't even know what step I'm not on.
Hey man, it works.
Naughty
It
step,
works.
I call it.
There you go.
But
But so,
in that first episode, in that last episode, you mentioned PaceBot, and PaceBot 3 actually
I
just
just
came
saw.
out.
Yeah.
PaceBot
But
3
it's
came out.
Mac. It's only Mac ecosystem.
It's both.
right?
It's both things. You can get it from the App Store, or
No,
no,
how
yeah,
do you can't get it on iOS though, right?
no, not yet. No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
No. You got to use a shortcut for that. Shortcuts.
Universal Clipboard is like San Francisco's Muni system, where it works exactly flawlessly right up until the moment where you depended on it. And like, I love Universal Clipboard so much, but it's so perplexing to me sometimes.
yeah, I agree. Clipboard app needs
It's
to
but
be
it's but
multi-platform.
like Universal Control, it's magic that it works at all.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you're just like, oh man, I just really want to get this into the LLM, and I need a screenshot from my phone, and can't I just copy and have that go in there? And it doesn't, but that's okay. I mean, I have to say, like, as sad and sour as everybody understandably is nowadays, I think it's actually a pretty interesting time right now. There's a lot of grenades rolling around in the tech world right now, but I feel like we are kind of in the midst of, admittedly, maybe for now, a slightly subtle shift in what we pay attention to, and like a lot of the kinds of things. Like, so David, when we first started doing this in workflows, and what's your app, and what's the other app, and how do you do your app with your app, and like that's still relevant for sure, but I don't know. There's certain kinds of trends in technology where I'm a lot more interested in that trend of technology than I am in like an incremental change to the iPhone. Personally.
I talk about it as now the challenge is imagination, because if you're
And trust,
using
imagination and trust, which go hand in hand.
yeah, agreed.
The more you can trust, the better you will imagine.
And I see all these people going through some of the courses I give, and the listeners of the show, they just roll their own apps now if they need something to do something. And it's great. People are automating and just making the technology get out of the way for them in ways that was just not possible before.
Totally.
So here's what I want to know, Merlin. We talk about dictation a lot on this episode. So in your current workflows, hopefully we get a picture of how you do your different things in this episode. Have you joined the like whisper flow voice dictation input like thing? David and Mike Hurley tried to gaslight me that swiping on your keyboard is actually fast. How do you input stuff on your computers?
Mike Hurley is so novel. Everything he does is so novel. He's like Willy Wonka or something. Let's see. I use dictation a lot. Dictation quad, dictation on my phone. And my rule of thumb is that if and I'm usually doing this in drafts or sometimes in messages, but my rule of thumb, at least mentally, if I have to think about it, is if I'm pretty sure this is going to be more than even one sentence, go ahead and dictate it. And if it's more than one or two sentences, for sure dictate it, because at least I can't show you this with data, but I can show you this with emotion. The time that I spend dictating and kind of fixing it is so much more enjoyable to me than typing. I know there are legitimate changes in how typing works on the iPhone, and I don't need articles about it. All I'll say is that I'm pushing 60, and my typing is not what it used to be. It's not fun. I do need my glasses. You can tell on the internet when I've got like 2 spaces between words, it's just because I didn't have my glasses on. Or I was gacked out on cocaine. It's just so much cocaine. But like real talk, I use it a lot there. I keep meaning to use it more on the Mac, but I still kind of can't get over that hump of input. Dictation or like the talking with LLMs. I've never quite gotten the hang of that, but I've had really good luck with dictation. And I'm kind of bummed right now that I have this, I guess, relatively old iPhone 16 Pro where I don't get the benefits of the new advanced typing stuff. Because that input stuff has actually become, it's as important as it's ever been. It's like, that's what I do. I try to make words go in the computer. That's kind of that's what my job is. Even when I'm not putting words in the computer, I'm thinking about what words should go in the computer, which if you think about it is ultimately what a writer's job is, even if they're a podcaster.
I've been dictating my whole life, but I find that when I dictate, actually the voice changes. And
It's absolutely a different state of mind, a different kind of, I'm not going to say a different part of your brain, but it's a modal change. It's the same way as the first time you ever tried to tell Amazon products to turn on your lamp. It takes a complete shift. And if you find yourself saying, hey, Dingus, in OmniFocus, remind me to set the priority. If you have to do that kind of odd command line interface with your brain in the moment, I was just saying to my friend Alex, I could tell you the difference between will and shall, but I can't speak the difference between will and shall. I could not use that in conversation and be confident. And but the let go and let God part for me is getting better at saying, you know, what Annie Lamott calls the poopy first draft. Like, just get it into the thing, and then you can fix it. As far as to answer your other questions, I have been pitched on, what's it called? Talkie. What's it called?
The Whisper Flow?
Yeah. I've been pitched on that, but I don't really exactly get how that would work for me. My friends who like LLM say it's their favorite way of babbling and having it turn it into something useful. And I get that, but that's not, I mean, I really do prefer to type. Like if I'm going to increasingly, as I do bigger projects with more agentic agents,
more powerful robots.
You know, the problem is, you know, just back in the day, God, the cocaine was so weak and the agents were so much less agentic. No, but like you know, Claude Code and now today with Codex, which I'm more than happy to talk about because it's kind of interesting. I do really like to type up a bulleted list. Like like you guys have seen that app Coax. Like the way that I got Coax to make a ton of channels that were really cool for me was all through writing, which is to say like, hey, you have these skills. You know where all my stuff is. Go make me like 15 channels where one of them will just be like reruns of Would I Lie to You or Taskmaster or Doctor Who. Like I have Genesis of the Daleks running on my TV all the time, and I can just dip in anytime I feel like it.
You know,
go see Scaras, just go, you know, pop in.
With like voice dictation, I don't use voice mode usually in the AI apps either, but I'm curious, like my daughter was getting a rabbit, and I handed her my phone to ask Claude questions about it, and no chance of even typing. She just started talking to it. And so she talked to Claude for an hour just about like rabbit questions. So I am curious, like younger generations,
absolutely.
I'm curious, that'll be more of a
different
voice.
Yeah, and I think this is I'm so glad you said that actually, because it keys onto something that's a value, I have to say, for me, which is like, it's not so much that like I want the sexiness of not being an old man. It's more just I don't want the lack of plasticity that comes from being an old man. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I because I stopped processing new information. And that's why I'm always trying to think in like the 3 axes and in time, at a moment, and context. And like, I mean, certainly that makes it a lot easier. I have my own sort of, if you like, as Simon would say, mechanical hook for like, before I blame something in the world on the age of another person, I try to really process how much of that is my own. And I have to say that an astonishingly rewarding amount of the time it is my own, and I avoid saying something stupid. And like these kids today, like they don't know how to use Photoshop, and you're like, can't
But they
go
can
down
use
to the, you can't get
CapCut like crazy.
you can't get an egg cream down at the drugstore anymore. And you're like, well, like why would your kid need to know any of this other stuff? Now, but an interesting point, I think, Stephen, to your point, yes, absolutely, because there's some kinds of things, like the first time your kids have ever had a slumber party with a voice assistant in the house, it's so fun to eavesdrop or to go back and look at history at all the things all the kids, my kids, like say, circa 10-year-old, 11-year-old sleepovers would do. It's so entertaining, and they do things to annoy each other, and they tell it to fart, and like, all that kind of stuff. Whereas my kid will. The thing that my kid does with voice the most is this, and I'm sorry your listeners without audio can't hear this. He holds his watch, he holds down on the crown, and he goes, set a 7-minute bread timer. Like, so politely. Whereas I'm the guy yelling, to the Google dingus, hey dingus, set a 7-minute pasta timer. Everybody has different levels of comfort. I think that's so important to realize. And before we try and shoehorn everybody into seeing the world the same way that we do, I think it's really useful. I'm sorry, I'm getting philosophical, but I think to enjoy technology and to understand technology, it helps a lot to understand and enjoy people. And like we get so hung up on all of these factions and all of these, like, what's the model and the effort this week? And it's like, what couldn't you ship? Like, tell me something awesome that you've done with this. I'm not saying what I do is awesome. I mean, what I do is awesome, but it's awesome to me. That's why I'm benefiting from this whole new class of tools and functionalities. Because David, with all due respect, I've never lacked imagination. I can come up with some pretty wackadoo ideas. And that, while that once surfaced as, here's some kind of horrible AI homunculus that was made with diffusion, modeling. Now today I can say, I'd be happy to give you some examples, but I can just say things like, go find when Lou Saunders said this thing about her hat on this TV show, and we'll go and find it. I documented that on a podcast yesterday. I can just do these flyers. I think at this point, it's 31 sources of what I call triangulation, which are data stores of all the stuff that matters to me that are sort of cross-indexed. And there's a tool stack for knowing to go through these. And before you ever say stuff like, I don't know, or just go and look. Assume I know what I'm talking about. By which I guess I'm talking about AI. Is that okay?
Yeah, but I think the paradigm has shifted, and that's why we need the imagination. I think a lot of people that grew up using AppleScript and terminal commands and whatnot, it doesn't occur to them that they can just tell an AI to go find a quote from a TV show, and now it can do it for them. And so we all need to change our perspective so we can get the most out of it.
Totally agree. If I could just give like forgive me, counselor, I'm a fancy corporate lawyer who might be a chicken. Here's the thing. 13, 15, whenever the Amazon device stuff started picking up and we all realized, hey, there's this thing where I can talk to my lamp and my lamp will do what I tell it to do. And there's at least for me, I'll just be real quick with this. There is a succession of adjustments for that with me. One is the idea that there's a thing in my house that listens to me, creepy. Also then remembering that I could talk to my lamp. I mean, it wasn't that long, honestly, before like talking to the lamp was the main way we got the lamp to work. But follow me on this. At first, you have to realize that it exists and remember that it exists. You've got to put those little weird covers over the switches so people don't shut off your computer thing or whatever. But then you've got to get over that hump of talking to it because you feel like an idiot. And so you say, hey, dingus, set master to relax. Hey, dingus, set kitchen to bright or whatever. And already, me doing that, you can tell that I'm in the Hue family system, and like I've gotten comfortable with that. I was not always comfortable with that. I felt weird as hell to talk to my lamp. I'm only saying this in the service of saying. And then for a little while, it got better. At some point, it's not important when, there's been just huge regressions. A lot of it is the Amazon ecosystem and how they've screwed that up. But honestly, here's the problem. David, just get back to the very beginning. I agree with you. It's imagination, it's curiosity, but it requires trust and credibility, because you know what? I don't talk to my lamps much anymore. I don't talk to my lamps much anymore, and I'll tell you why. Because they don't work as well anymore. And I don't think it's just me. There's just a whole bunch of home stuff where, honestly, the kind of switch that's been available since the 1940s works a lot better than voice at this point. And that's why I say regressions. So that's the part I think that can also be tricky, is that waves don't just come in. They also go out, and things do change and you adjust. But like, in order for me to use these things, I need to trust it. And like I've said to my friend John Siracusa, with LLMs in particular, you might be the greatest. I'm addressing my LLM here. You might be the greatest employee in the world. You might even be the most perfect employee in the world for me. But there's a critical flaw in place if you typically, perhaps several times a day, forget that you work for me. Because at the point where you've forgotten you work for me, I no longer have the best employee in the world. I've just got somebody who I have to call at 11 and see if they're up.
Okay, Merlin, I have to ask you. I'm going to drop an ad marker right there, David, by the way.
Sure.
I need to ask. I try to follow when you talk about your AI and what you do with it, like which one you're using and how. And I don't know about you, but I've moved. Like I did ChatGPT for a while with custom GPTs, and I loved that. And then I tried Gemini, dabbled there for a minute, and realized it was not a wartime conciliary. And so now I'm in Claude, and I'm doing a lot of Claude. So
You're out, Tom.
in your system, in your system right now,
Yeah.
what is your go-to, and what is the database living?
So
in?
similar to yours. I'll give. First of all, I can't talk about this stuff because people hate it, or they pretend to hate it performatively, and that's fine. And you know what? Can I just say once, include underscore once, act like this is PHP. Like, look, I hate AI too. The only thing I don't hate about AI is exactly what I'm doing with this stuff. And like, I can't be there to persuade people of that every time. But here's the thing. Yes. So real quick, whistle stop. Initially, great success in the last 2 years with especially ChatGPT. And I was on 3 point something probably when I got into it. It did great. Everything was awesome. Things were fine. Flashing forward, my friend Max was like one day with the urgency that he brings to these kinds of things. He's like, "You've got to go right now. Try Claude Code." And I was like, "Ugh. Claude is Google, right?" No. Anyway, he goes, "You got to try this," and I did try it, and that was in, I want to say February, March, April. But there was that kind of like that weird thing over the holidays where everybody tried Claude Code, and it was, I felt like a little bit of an aha moment. There was something that kind of broke through the meniscus, the penumbra, the surface tension. Something
membrane.
broke through, and a bunch of people went, "Oh, maybe it's not all slop. Maybe slop is just the stuff that I don't like. What if this could actually do stuff for me?" If you remember, because like over the holidays, suddenly a ton of people tried it and went, in this case, Claude Code, and we're like, "Whoa!" So Claude Code went great until the middle of May, when through an error of my own, I'll just own it, I asked it to find optimizations, improve some things, clean it up. It was getting really slow, and I know that I had instructions and hooks that were probably stepping on each other. Is this okay that I'm talking about this?
No,
Yeah,
please.
this is exactly what I was wanting to know. Yeah.
Okay. And so middle of May, I asked this one Friday. This is now known canonically across all of my LLMs as the Friday incident title.
Black Friday.
I don't think we say that anymore. It wiped out. It's just misunderstandings all the way down. It wiped out a ton of my configuration stuff, and in such a way that it lost the awareness to be aware of what it had gotten rid of, which is why I'm always saying to folks like, "Hey, be careful about additive instructions in your LLM because you can really cut yourself off." Me trying to get it to stop saying words like surface and spine can hurt the functionality. Like if you tell your LLM never to say computer again, it'll never say computer again, but it also won't be able to do a lot of stuff. So that happened in May. Long story short, I started using ChatGPT in the, chatbot to fix stuff, and it worked pretty well. And then what brings us up to last week. And last week, it was finally like the way I phrased this to my friend Alex. I said, I thought I loved my partner's face, but it turns out I'm actually in love with their plastic surgeon. Because ChatGPT had done all of this stuff so well and so fast without saying surface, without saying spine, without all of that nonsense. It kept banging at what I call walls of text. Wow. Look, I've got ADHD. Just give me something to punch. I know what I want. Like, I'm not here to read. I'm an inveterate reader everywhere except here. I'm not paying you to read the paper, and I don't want you to watch me read the paper either. Just tell me the thing to do. And I said, Stephen, I hope you'll appreciate this. I said to it this weekend, this is kind of like, this is the beginning of the second act in like a romantic comedy where I'm like, just for the sake of argument, ChatGPT. Codex, by the way, I finally discovered Codex. I go, what what would happen if I moved all the family business over here? I said, let me think about that. Ran up a plan. So I am in the midst now, almost done, of moving, after 3 or 4 days, of moving all of my family business. It remains in a hub accessible to Claude Code, but now ChatGPT Codex has torn out all of the unnecessary coaxial cable. It's ripped out all of the packing peanuts. It's taken out all that stuff. And I said specifically, like, you know how to do this stuff. You know how to do my functionality, but could you also do this without like manually tracing all the crap that turned it into a dumb thing over on Claude? What are you good at, Codex? Which is a lot. As you know, it can run this town. And so it did, and it's doing that. And like, it's like 5 things for this show today would not have been possible last week for me. Because it's, at the end of the day, what it is, here it is. And like, I hate to sound touchy about this, but people get twitchy about this. Is like, it helps me do the parts of my work that I enjoy. It helps me do the parts of my work that I think I'm good at. And if I could be a little self-involved, it helps me do the part of my works that I think I'm uniquely suited for. And if it can do stuff like mock up a basic podcast with 2 bookends in Descript for me, and then export it and make the audio changes, it can fully control Descript, which is my podcast editing app, in the background, headless. Like, I just tell it what to do from another computer, and it goes and makes. And again, I'm not trying to disintermediate anybody, but I'll close with this thing that I said online to the developer, toward the developer of Coax the other day, that wonderful app that creates a screen that's sort of like, you know, what your channel 3 was like on cable, like what's on right now and the weather channel and all that. And I said, go and watch, please, using what I call triangulation, which I think is a very interesting idea. Using triangulation, learn not just what I watch on TV, but how I watch it on TV. You've got Tracked, you've got Letterboxd, you've got my history with Radar and Plex and Infuse, and you've got all of that information. You've got every draft I've ever done. You've got every social media post I've ever done. You've got every image I've ever taken. I want you to aggressively find connections between those things that would surprise me and interest me, right? So go and run and do that. And its ability to do that has been kind of breathtaking, you know, to be honest.
So I totally get, like, even in my creative process, I don't hand off the things that I feel are important from the creation process. Like, you make podcasts. You make a lot of podcasts every week. And so I'm sure there are things that you particularly don't want an LLM to do. So how do you make that decision of this is a task for the LLM versus this is something that I want to do? Like, I'm going to write stuff on 3x5 cards, but the LLM is going to do this other thing, like every time I say title in a recording. How do you decide what to give it?
Oh, I hope you'll come back to that title thing. And the other one is notes, which I think are kind of funny. Yeah. You said something so interesting, though, that I think, because I'm how I am, I think about this maybe in a somewhat novel way. You said, what did you say? That, you know, I make a podcast. And the thing, I do make a podcast. As this morning since 5:30 a.m. will attest, there's nothing in the world that I like less than doing things with configuring audio and editing it and doing all that stuff. Editing decisions, I enjoy. Doing all the heavy lifting of that is not fun to me. Like, I'd rather be a product manager than a senior developer. I mean, let alone some MySQL full stack grunt or whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think that's such an important distinction that, what is it I once said? We procrastinate when we temporarily forget who we are. What is our job? What is my job? My job is to make an entertaining podcast and give it to people. Is it my job to show my effort for how much I've gone in and manually move this like 3 nanoseconds? I don't know. I guess the salient difference there for me is, if I had to pick, I would much rather be talent than tech. And as such, I have limited resources. I have limited time, and I certainly have limited interest and energy. And I would rather put the energy that I have available into doing the part only I can do than doing the part that the machine can do. The thing I said to the Coax guy was, or around the Coax guy was, like I say, I'd given Codex these great instructions that were like, you know how I watch TV. Like, give me a marathon of this. And I just wrote it all up and sent it in. And I don't mean this in a snarky way at all. I mean this in the opposite of a snarky way. But after I'd said, hey, this is how I did Coax, it built this entirely for me, from API level stuff, unless it needed to interact on screen, in which case I go and take a bath, and when I come back, it's all done. And I got the richness of this. And here's what I found myself saying. I don't want anybody to lose their job. I think it's a little bit of a red herring the way we throw AI around without any proof about like what it does. But whatever, set that aside. There will certainly be disruptions. There'll be disruptions for all of us, including us. But I don't want anybody to lose their job. But here's the thing. If your job is to take a markdown bulleted list about how I watch TV and turn it into something on my Apple TV that I can watch, where have you been for the last 45 years? If that's your job, where have you been? I don't think that's your job. I mean, like, I think your job is probably more like developer or product manager. And it sucks that it changes in that way, but like, I'm incensed with how much people throw the baby out with the bathwater on this stuff. And again, you don't have to like what I do, but I hope you love what you do. And I hope you are finding affordances for doing the uniquely you things about whatever you produce. And if it doesn't matter to you, then we shouldn't have the conversation. But it's so freeing. Like you so wonderfully said, Stephen, on YouTube, like the stuff you can do now with talking to shortcuts is bananas. Like that's, how do you, I mean, that's the dumbest goddamn app in the world. What the hell is shortcuts? It's like, it's too simple to do anything cool and it's too complicated to do anything easy. Everybody hates it. Why don't you just go learn Perl? Like, but if you can talk to it, that changes it. And now this has gone from being an app on my phone to a thing that's improving my life.
And I think that's with the AI thing, a lot of people get it wrong because they're trying to make it write PhD papers, and really it's a donkey work tool. It's there to do the basic donkey work you don't want to do. And if you embrace it that way, first of all, the existing models are good enough. You don't need to worry about the latest and greatest. And second, you really can open up time to work on the things that are uniquely you.
Especially if you, I mean, stuff like, don't you think, David, stuff like automations, like honestly, if you get things the way you want, like on a Mac, in former times, you would use like LaunchD or cron or something like that. And now today, I mean, there's all kinds of different ways I now have. Where one thing is I've tried to tell all of my repos and things, please try not to use my Mac to do anything. If you need to do something, do it yourself. If you can't do it yourself, do it with GH or, like a GH, process up in the cloud. And if you can't do that, do it on my Synology. But like, please just keep text files to the extent possible in my repo. Like I'm not a librarian. But again, that it takes a kind of boldness. It takes a kind of boldness personally, I think, to say, I'm not going to dress myself up. What does Henry say? King Hal, it yearns me not if men my garments wear. Like, I don't need to impress you guys. I don't need to impress anybody. I'm not going to puff myself up. I'm not on LinkedIn. Like, I'm here to tell you that I'm some kind of podcast producer? I make dick jokes and have a bachelor's degree, and I'm very, very happy with it. And the other thing I'm always trying to say to folks is, like, when I talk about stuff like Taskmaster, or I talk about stuff like these little projects, or I talk about the ability to build what I call dossiers, it's not for anybody. It is kind of for me, although it could be for anybody. And the message of that is not watch Taskmaster, make dossiers, make people lose their jobs with no water and AI. No, it's not that. You've got to stay curious and plastic about this stuff. You have got to keep an open mind and honestly stay curious. And by that I mean, like, not the kind of curiousness where you're like, I'm just asking the question, but like we're the kind of person who can like just be so invigorated by the idea of what something is becoming as you're watching it. And I feel like there's a lot of I don't even know the word, like inertia in our culture to push back on all those kinds of things and just keep digging ourselves in deeper and deeper on our priors. And I think it's making us very, very dull.
Do you guys find with all this new tech, because it really is transformative, is like sometimes you just wake up thinking about something you want to build with it. And like you get out of bed at like 5 just because you can't stop thinking about it.
What? And that's, you're teasing what I'm going to do the next episode, David, because I just vibe coded an app just the other day, just because I wanted to, because I wanted something slightly different. And you made me think too, Jack Conte recently had a talk. It was at South by Southwest, but he had creativity in the age of AI. And he talked about how in film, the first film cameras, all they did was point it at the stage and film the stage play because they didn't know what this new technology.
There's no vocabulary.
There's no vocabulary. Yeah, exactly. And that's
Eisenstein and those guys hadn't like defined what film is yet.
Right. And so it wasn't until later where there was like, oh, we can move the camera closer to the subject. We can change scenes. We can actually make cuts. And it wasn't until years after. And I feel like with AI, that's what we're doing now, like a video generation of horses running in a field. Well, we can go to a field and film
the
that
train's
right
coming
now.
at me.
Right. Like we can do that now. And so right now it's AI just mimicking what we know to do. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, it will be what can AI do that's genuinely different that will allows for better work, different work, less donkey work, like David says. Like that's coming. We're just not there yet. I'm curious too, Merlin, like practical, like use cases. You say title and you say notes. So I want to hear like just some of the practical things you do with your AI. Because like one thing I just did the other day, I needed to make another iOS 27 video because that's what YouTube wants. And I was like, what haven't I talked about?
By the way, I did remember to like and subscribe, and I did hit the bell, if that helps at all.
Thank you very much.
I feel like, Stephen, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I feel like it really helps people discover the show. Is that fair to say?
I think it does. Sure. Maybe. I don't know. Like, I actually don't know anymore.
I know.
I
know.
Just watch the stuff.
Do you know that phrase, cargo cult? You know that phrase?
Yes.
It's slightly racist, but not too much. And it's basically the idea is that when, was it not B-1s, but whenever the big cargo planes were flying into Pacific Islands, people who'd never seen a plane before thought it was God. And because, for example, because the pilots wore headsets with headphones, they started making headphones out of coconuts, hoping they would please the God that brought them all this food. I don't know if that's completely 100% correct, but that's kind of what we're saying with all this stuff. We're like, I mean, every movement in art, really ever, but especially since the mid-19th century, has been a reaction to how we think about art, how we look at art, how we make art. You don't get to Picasso or Braque unless you've come at that through, to go backwards, Van Gogh, and before that, especially like Gauguin. Like Gauguin's idea of like making like something that's a little bit like a rectangle with a triangle on it, and that's a house. Like that was a huge thing to do, and he was friends with Van Gogh. But that changed. Oscar Wilde once said that once you've seen an impressionist painting, you can never look at water the same. He was a big believer in like the importance of artifice. He was like like fin de siècle nut job. But like it's true. Once I had seen water lilies in person, water started looking different to me. And I think that's true. I think what we're describing here also is like, I'm doing like this freehand drawing of what I think this program should be, because that's all I know how to do. I mean, I'm putting on coconut headphones as much as anybody else is. The practical thing started with when I started using Descript. I don't know if I pronounced it right, and I don't care. It's an app. And you drag in, what I do is I drag in audio files. It creates a transcript. The marquee feature of Descript initially was, I think, this is not official, but I think the marquee feature, according to them, would be edit your podcast like a Microsoft Word file, which you could totally do. You just go in and you select text. It's brilliant. I mean, I don't do a lot of editing per se, but boy, that ability to manipulate words really meant a lot to me. So why do I do that? Why do I say title? It's become a joke a bit, but it started practically, which was if I say, I can't think of one now, Max Sparky Studio title. Like I'll mutter that under my breath. People who know the bit, but saliently, now that is a cue that started with Descript. It's a cue for Descript to locate anywhere that I said title. It became much more useful after I started using an LLM, but that's where that started. And it's also where Notes started, where Alex and I started trying to remind ourselves of something we wanted to put into show notes. And so we'd say Notes. And that way, if we remembered to look for it, it would find it. Well, there's lots more things like that we do, where I utilize that in-band communication as part of the process of making the podcast or the dossier or the whatever. That's where that came from. It's just that LLMs, it's, again, talk about coconut headphones. It went from being something that was silly but useful with this one app to being something that's now kind of critically useful, to where Alex and I can now make a request. I wish people liked my dossiers. Because they hate LLMs, they never look at my cool dossiers. But I made these incredible one-page web pages for podcast episodes. And it's amazing to me. It's just everything you could ever want. Infographics, like it just builds all this stuff. But I don't think people like that. But the idea is, though, like if if I can say, hey, Dingus, this is basically, it knows to look for, in this case, honestly, like, hey, Dingus. But I can address the LLM from inside the podcast episode, talk to it in the future, ask it to look things up, then collect everything it thought it looked up and fact check it. And I just think that's funny.
That's pretty good.
It's better than talking to a lamp.
I'll drop an ad break. David, you want to go?
Yeah, where do you want to go next? You guys want to keep talking AI? Or you want to get into other stuff?
Let me
see like Sunday morning. Let me pull up your thing.
whatever. It's let me. Okay.
I'm totally at your disposal, guys. Anytime, anywhere, any whatever.
You talk about TV shows and stuff. Oh, first of all, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Have you tried Siri AI for some of the stuff that it can do? Like, do you have the beta?
Yeah,
Have
I
you
have.
tried it?
Yeah, especially based on your AI is not Siri is not a joke anymore or something like that. Like,
anymore,
yeah.
yeah. It can actually recognize movies and TV shows. Do you?
Can I just say to everyone listening?
Yeah.
You can say to somebody all the great shows, but if you really like what somebody does, why don't you show them by giving them an example of what it is?
Thank you.
I don't understand people anymore. I feel like I should be hospitalized. I have, and it's real neat. It's real limited. I don't hate that it's limited. But yeah, I've gotten started with it a little bit. I haven't gotten the habit of using it a lot, partly because I so quickly run up against all the limits of what it understands the world, the limits of how it understands the world. Do you know what I mean?
When you're on the go, like on your iPhone specifically, and you want to do something AI related or something task related, where do you go for that? Like, do you have the ChatGPT app on your phone? You go there to do like a web search? Do you go to Safari? Like, what is your process on the go? You want to do something quick. How do you do it?
That's a good question. And I wish I had a sexier answer than this dog's dinner that I'm about to give you. But the typical thing is when I'm on the go would be, do you pronounce your name Stephen Robles?
That's right. Yeah. It's like a Z at the end. Robles.
Google Stephen Robles. I hit the dingus on the side. I hit the side thing. To do a basic search. And honestly, I wish I could convince LLMs of the efficacy of something called Google. Like, please don't spend 90 minutes building an MCP if I just want to find out who played Porchy on The Crown. Like, there's a whole place where you can go look that up. No, honestly, though, if it's just something like that that's real quick, I'll do it that way. Okay. For the other kinds of things, I don't know. I'm still in kind of a hellscape of my own design, not knowing where to put it. I've only recently, since this weekend, as we record this, gotten set up with Remote, where I can now actually interact with, on my two Macs, I can interact with Codex on those. I don't love typing to LLMs on my phone. I haven't gotten into that yet. Honestly, I have an action. This is off topic, but I have I might have mentioned this before, but I have an action in Drafts that creates what I call my daily file. So it's just real simple. I just click it every day, and it creates or finds, importantly, because you don't want to have more than one of these. It creates or finds the current file for today, which says today, Thursday and date, and then it's just a dashed list.
Right.
That is frequently where I will stash stuff. And the closest I've gotten to more integration on that, which is really meat-headed, was something I'd been doing with Claude Code, where I told it I'd identified a kind of fenced code to locate in any draft. So basically, anywhere I put a certain kind of fenced code, by which I just mean, like, let's say something as easy as like an H3 with 4 HRs under it, anything in between count as Claude work. And I'll say, and then the H3 would be like Claude to-dos or whatever.
Yeah, I did that originally, and I tagged
it's so hacky. It's really hacky.
But you know what I found is, because they have an MCP, I just tell it every day at the end of the day, part of its shutdown is just read all my inbox drafts. And if any of them look like something they should work on, tell me what you're going to do with it.
That's a neat idea.
And it's honestly, you don't need to make it special. It figures it out after you tell it a few times.
Preparing for this show, I have to say this is the first time I visited with a friend on a podcast since I started using this stuff in this way. And I mean, what Codex did to prepare me for this was incredibly useful. I mean, just in terms of like, and something I haven't said, or I should say more, is whether I'm talking about Codex, whether I'm talking about Claude Code or whatever, I'm using a lot of this not in the way that it was intended. Like on the one hand, I don't want a little friend. Like I don't need somebody. I don't need a pal. I don't need somebody to agree with me. Like,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, if I knew how to code it, I would. So what I do need though is insane amounts of context about what I do and how I do it. And I want that to be enforced in everything that you do, to remember what I do and how I do it. Because I'm self-involved enough to think that matters. So like if I have something on my Plex, so like if I say, what did Lou Saunders say about the hat that she was wearing on Would I Lie to You? It on its own goes to my Synology and starts looking through subtitles until it finds the exact quote. It pulls it up in 1 minute and 48 seconds.
So wait, I was going to ask
That's so powerful.
I was going to ask how you're pulling lines. So you just have the video files.
Well,
with, like,
it depends.
the
It depends on,
subtitles?
because again, okay, sorry, continue. Go ahead.
No, I'm just curious because I was like, whenever I want to get it to search something, I transcribe it and then I get a text file. But you're saying it'll just look at the video files that have subtitles as part of, like, attached to it? Is that what you're asking?
That's
doing?
okay. So something I said to my wife was like, here's the way that I get frustrated, and then the way that I notice an improvement is an improvement in a certain kind of thing. And some people would call it like aggressiveness. I guess you could call it. I would call it in anthropomorphic terms curiosity. I would love for these things to be more curious about how I work, curious about what its options are, constantly curious about understanding how to best utilize the tool stack you have, which includes everything in Unix. Why would you need to go to computer control to open a file in Typora? What century is this? You have the tools for all of these things. Like, that's madness to me, right? I said, but here's the thing that's really, on the one hand, it's the thing that drives me crazy eventually about every LLM, but then also like becomes so buoyant to me, is its aggressiveness at figuring out what to do. I said, if I woke up one morning, let's say I'm a rich guy, like you guys, I wake up and my house is full of water. I call the best plumber in the world and I say, please come out to my house and get rid of the water. I'm going to go away for a week, and when I come back, I don't want there to be any water, right? Like, to me, as an idiot and non-plumber, title, I would go into that saying, it seems to me that, like, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. I'm not going to tell you what tools to use. I'm not going to tell you how much it's going to cost. I'm going to say, go get the water out of my house, and then when I come home, I want the water out of my house. Okay? Whatever. That's a silly example. What I don't have to do is go in the basement every 20 minutes and make sure he's not just eating Doritos and waiting for ideas from me.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, did you want me to keep getting the water out? Yeah, like, and haha, right? Yeah, how many times have I had to say, please go to the first thing I said in this session and remember why I'm here? You got distracted by something you made up and you stopped doing my passionate task, and that makes me crazy. I hire the good plumber because they come out to the house, they get the water out of the house, I come back and the water is gone. For example, I'll pivot here. You could feel completely free to say, I need to ask you a question about the kind of copper pipe you want. I go, okay, what's the question? Well, there's 7 kinds of copper pipe, and there's ways we could do this, and I could economize, but these 3 kinds, and if you want, I can build you a table for that. Here's the thing, plumber. I hired you because I'm not a plumber, and I don't know how to do plumbing. And I do want you to feel free to, like, get things cleared if you need permission. Right? You need to know budget constraints and stuff like that. That's fine. But please remember, I am in no position to explain copper pipe to you. And the more you try to explain copper pipe to me in detail, it doesn't make me happy. These walls of text where you show your work, and as I like to say, like what are you doing? Why are you filling my screen with all of this stuff instead of just getting the water out of my house? And that's what's been thrilling to me about Codex. And to your point, Stephen, I don't care how you figure it out. I mean, within reason.
Yeah.
So what we try to learn, and integrate, is it goes out and it says, oh, yeah, you got this on Plex, of course. You're watching it. And I say, the episode that I'm watching right now, here, let me send you the image of this.
Are you always cranking on, like, the highest models on these things?
I try not to. I would commend people to, well, never mind, it costs money. But in the latest episode of Due by Friday After Show, we talked about this. I ran into a problem where a lot of the stuff I made in Fable worked great while I was using Fable. And as soon as I went to Opus 4.8 or even 5, as soon as I went down, it suddenly lost its mind. Not only had it lost all of its curiosity and ability to figure things out, I kept saying, let me just beg you, please, never create an instruction that will not be sensible and honored by less performant models and efforts. And like, because I think the trouble is that Fable is like, I mean, it's like a big, strong man with a hatchet. Like Fable will just keep going at everything, and it'll figure it out. Fable doesn't know. Fable doesn't have a presence of mind about what it's better at than the other models. And that causes it to create, it's like, did you ever have a teacher that taught you math that was too hard for your grade? It's like, we never learned this. Like, this happened to my kid. Get these
Mr.
worksheets.
March in 5th grade. I still remember his name.
Oh, no. Was it like fractions? Do you remember what it was?
I don't even know. It was traumatizing.
But you know what I'm talking about? We were like, I swear to
God.
God, I'm a really good student, and we haven't learned this yet. I think that's what happens, to your point. It was like, and then I'm like, look, dude, I cannot blow double credits to have Fable just stay up to date. And plus, of course, so my only tinfoil hat thing is I do feel sometimes like whenever one big model gets improved, the other ones get bad. Opus
Yeah,
has
it's
gotten,
weird.
Opus 5's fine, but Opus 4.8 was real garbagey after Fable came out.
Yeah, it does feel like that. But also, like in my vibe coding app experiment recently, Opus 4.8 or even 5, I kept telling it like, hey, the columns are doing this. Can you do this? Couldn't figure it out. 3 iterations. Flip over to Fable. It figured it out. So it's like, okay.
But
and I don't know why.
Don't you suspect that part of that is that restlessness, curiosity, that like Simon W. has talked about this, but like it's you just set it off on a thing and it just keeps running. It's like a pit bull or a Rottweiler. It just keeps tearing at it, and if it needs to eat the door, it will. Which I understand has its problems, but it's way better than me discovering there's been 2 hours of Dorito eating while water continues to fill my house.
Exactly.
But that's really the tension here, because it does need you to make sure it's not eating Doritos. It's not good enough yet. It will go down side paths and side quests.
The distractions are more important than you first think.
Yeah.
Because it can smell its own farts in a way that thinks it like invented the world's greatest fart. And you're like, dude, you are so distracted by this rat hole over here that you completely lost track. That's one of the things that finally got me away from, honestly, David, that finally got me off of Claude Code was I kept having just complete context collapse where inside of a session, it would forget what we're talking about, or I'd have to remind it. And it was like, if you've ever had anybody, this is not a joke, but if you've ever had anybody in your family with dementia and you read that book, The 36-Hour Day, it starts to feel a little bit like you're talking to grandma. And like she wants to know when she can get a phosphate at Walgreens.
A couple things on that. First of all, I agree that AIs are way too verbose, and they give me reading assignments, and that's I find very.
Don't you hate it? You're a lawyer. You love to read.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer anymore, buddy. But the either way, and I don't want this. I like you said, I want, but I've given it instructions to give me bullet points. It does a pretty good job with that, but it really is a problem when it gives you those assignments. And I don't know.
Have you had success with giving it that sort of style or usage instruction and then seeing it honored? And also, if I may ask, which LLM are we talking about?
Yeah, I primarily use Claude Cowork, and I do the Claude.md files, kind of like the initial 10 commandments, and I write that stuff in there. And the other thing I do is I have real strong what I call thread discipline. I give it
wow, that's so interesting. Really?
So I give it like one job in this thread, and it does that job, and then I hand it off to another thread for the next job. I mean,
so
even
you don't suffer from those problems where a thread hasn't caught up on new contacts, for example.
Not as much. I mean, the way I understand it, I'm a monkey. I don't really understand it, but the way I understand it is, if you tell it, work on problem A and then later problem B, it's still going to try and hold on to problem A in that thread, and that's where the dementia shows up. So. Even like this episode, when we're done, I'll give it the Riverside transcript, and one thread will go through and find links, and another thread will go through and find all the times you curse, so we can tell Jim to delete that, And we're gonna like all that stuff will
Thanks,
be done.
Mom.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. But I mean, it's just like
thank you.
I break it down, and
right. No, but like also, it sounds like you thread discipline, but also like you I also caught that you said you write your like would you say handoff or what's the one the Claude.md. You said you write that. It's like I very rarely. Oh gosh, since the early days I don't do that. But you strike me as somebody who does think it through like as a process.
Well, I use the term "right" liberally here. I have told it, please stop giving me these long narratives. I want it in summaries.
I'm not going to read this. There's nothing functional. I will not. If you make me scroll, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah, I mean, and I caught myself saying, like, it would give me 1,000 words, and I just write, just tell me what your question is, and then that's when I went and adjusted it. And it is more disciplined on that for me, but it still has bits of verbosity, I guess we would say. But I haven't worked with Codex as much as you have. Maybe it's better at doing that.
Well, something I learned from Simon, was it Wilson, but Simon W, my hero, is that there's a big difference between instructions that are, and forgive me if I'm getting the words wrong, but I think you'll follow the gist. Something I learned this spring following his work, and it would be great if you put a link to notes, put a link to Simon's site in there, is that there's a big difference between narrative and mechanical instructions. So, and the way I've described this recently to someone is that narrative instructions are the list you write to Santa and hope that it gets there. And mechanical solutions are the things that make sure exactly what you want is always under the tree. So I just sent you one here. This is my ongoing struggle because I'm a word nerd. My ongoing struggle to get it to stop using dumb language. And I have to be careful, that I don't step on that. But in order to have this enforced, there has to be something more significant than a .md file somewhere on my drive. That sounds nuts, but if you have a repo my size, which is really, really, really big, with a lot of different things in it, you can have very confusing messages that screw up your LLM because, if you could think of it almost like, not Zeno's paradox, but almost like the Cretan paradox, one lies, one tells the truth. Anyway, one of those old-timey riddles where or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like Heisenberg. It's very difficult. The more specificity you give it for how you want it to work, the more careful you need to be that you are not unintentionally stepping on something or giving it something contradictory. Stephen, do you know what I'm talking about?
I was just going to say, I have given it almost 0 instructions. So what I have in my Claude is
you're walking the middle path, my friend.
I'm trying to reach Centauri. So you got I got projects, and basically what I'll do is whenever I ask it about shortcuts, which is basically how do I use this web API in a shortcut, or how do I do this with a shortcut, I'll always go back to that project, and then all my past conversation threads, I assume Claude is using that as context in my next query. So I have a YouTube one, I have shortcuts, I have another podcast one, and then everything else is just individual.
So you have silos. You have silos that let it restrict, whereas with mine, it's you got to load the whole dictionary to make the thing work. Right? Is that kind of the difference? Is because then it's siloed, and Lloyd David has this discipline with threads that is the more sensible way to do a coding project.
Well, I think maybe, and I never or rarely go back to a thread for anything. If it was a shortcut I was working on using the movie database API, I might search Claude, go back to that conversation, and ask a follow-up if it's specifically about the one thing I was trying to do in a shortcut.
If it's working right, you don't need thread maintenance. That's the thing. It's like Codex is so much better at this than Claude was. Because Claude had even lost the ability to understand what I'm trying to tip it off and cue it about. And it would be like, oh, you're asking for a thing. I'll try to look that up. And I'm like, I hate you so much. Your very first instruction is to always begin by assuming I'm not gaslighting you. Always begin. If I mention a project, I'm not doing it to fool you. I'm doing it because I want to do some work on that. And if I have to sit there and wait while you figure out that you have a job, let alone what that job is, that becomes frustrating. I really have wondered if part of my frustration, apart from being how I am, is just that I have so much stuff in that repo. And do you consider it really a coding thing?
I don't.
Sorry.
I mean, I rarely code it.
It's like my little assistant is what it is.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I haven't hit the problems with Claude you have, but I have brought a little bit more to the process. I have things called skills and methods. So everything, like finding links for this show and finding edit points from the transcript, all that is its own distinct skill. It's a set of written instructions it's made, and it follows them to the letter every time. And it knows if I give it a transcript, first it does this, then it opens a thread and does this, and it
Isn't
goes
that powerful?
through and knocks them down.
But do you agree, David? Trust? You know that when you do it, it'll do it, and you don't need to go see if there's still water in your house.
Well, I mean, it was trust but verify for probably the first 10 runs, and then it got to a point where you just trust it. It just does it. But the thing you're talking about, the specific jargon thing, that drives me nuts too. I made one, I just called it a style guide. And it's like anytime I read something it says that I don't like, I say add to the style guide to never say this again. And it's a method.
And does that get, I guess the question then becomes the narrative versus mechanical. Do you find that gets enforced or observed mostly?
It gets, because in the Claude.md, getting down to the metal, I guess as you'd say, it knows anytime it's going to write to me, it actually runs it against the style guide.
Right.
And that means it's slower because it's going to do that, and it's going to use more tokens. But it lowers my blood pressure because the thing that it gives me is what I
can't
want.
explain this to people who are not like this, but as you see from what I sent you, I despise when it says that something has landed. Why can't you just say that it finished or arrived? Like, and could you please stop saying stuff like the source of truth? Like, this is one of those.
Do you have this
tags.
updating the count? Do you have this updating the count as you like make requests to it?
Well, I haven't opened this document in weeks, so but the 14-day count is something it came up with. But honestly, the funny part is, as I was getting so frustrated, and I mean, I've asked it, what's my budget? I haven't checked again. Last time I checked, 60% of my monthly allotment was fixing Claude. 60% of my tool use every month was trying to get Claude to work the way I wanted. And I think that's a teachable moment because I'm super interesting. In this instance, I was just about, I don't know why. I mean, David, I think words matter. Like, I think the difference between compare and contrast is a really salient distinction to make. I think the difference between costly and expensive, I think these things matter. Words are how we talk to each other. And if we want to be loosey-goosey around the house and have fun, that's cool. But like, you must speak plainly. You must speak clearly. Syracuse thinks I'm just like afraid of jargon. It's like, I understand there's times when jargon is needed. If you need to describe the functionality of application.cfm, by all means do. But don't say that something landed or you've got receipts or you found the spine or what's the ask? Is it a build? Is it a big spend? Let's do the record. Stop repurposing parts of speech. Read Strunk and White and talk like an adult.
This is I'm going to put this in my Claude.md. How you say talk like an adult, not sweaty, not millennial, no invented jargon.
Yeah.
I think it encapsulates it.
I was at a point.
Have you ever seen Bill Nye's Forbidden Words videos?
No, I haven't. I'd love to see
they're
it.
so good. You got to watch
I finally was at a point where I'm going to describe this in a kind of a dumb way, but I had gotten right up to the point with this stuff where it was driving me so crazy. I would get distracted by it, and I'd be like, because I also had a subsystem for this, of course, where anytime I say the word infraction, silently write to a log file like what that infraction is, and then I periodically go back and have ChatGPT fix those things for Claude, whatever. But I finally got to where I was like, I almost just want to make a JSON dictionary, and like before you ever use this word as this part of speech, consider these other three words that might be better. Like I could not get a mechanical hook to like make that happen. Like there's no way. And guys, if you guys have used Claude Code, you've all gotten this. If you haven't, you haven't used it enough. You've seen it to say that it's found the spine of something. That's horrible. Why would you describe something as the spine of something? And so finally, I got it so touchy that it was like, hey, I'm just talking about your criterion disks. I was saying what's printed on the spine. I'm like, that's okay, relax.
Wow.
But that's the problem though. Is last thing on this is like you hope. Additive versus subtractive. Like if you keep adding instructions and you keep adding hooks and you keep adding rules, you become like an ineffective parent. You become like you become one of those yelly parents that isn't trying to teach a kid how to be a good person. They're trying to teach them how to follow rules, which does not make a good person. It makes somebody who's scared. And like, but with an LLM, I said to it like again, application.cfm for my Cold Fusion days, .htaccess. Bash profile. I never worry if my bash profile or my ZSH or whatever. I never worry if my profile understands which aliases are active. I never have to fret about that. I never worry that this is just going to blow up in my face because you've forgotten what your job is. You're a general purpose computer and you can accept instructions. How do I, without having to write machine code, how do I give you the instructions to care deeply about what I do and reintegrate what you learn as we go in a way that builds trust and context?
I'm going to drop the last ad break. I want to know, Merlin, I feel like maybe you've heard of this concept, inbox zero. I'm curious. David uses AIs for like email, like replying to customer things, like password resets. Are you using any of these tools for your mail management?
I get so little mail now, honestly. I have really, I shouldn't say this. I use SaneBox, and I gave it the keys to the kingdom. And I am pretty broad about what I don't want to see. Nope. Or as Marceline says in Adventure Time, mute. Like I don't need to be read in on this. Like every school my kid applied to.
Yeah.
How did you get this number? Why are you sending me things? My kid is not going to Santa Cruz.
Are you saying black holing all that stuff? Just a black hole all the time?
And again, like one of my phrases, some people would call it a mantra, I wouldn't, but a phrase I say to myself sometimes is stupid, can't stick to me. I am a person, an adult in the world, who gets to decide how much of other people's BS is something I carry around on their behalf.
Yeah.
Or as I often say to my co-host Alex, never carry water for the people who hate you. And like, just because you're emotional about email, well, that's the whole problem. That's why Inbox Zero needed to exist. If email were the problem, we'd all just delete the app and be done with it. Well, it's not. It's about people, and that's difficult. Now, to answer your question, though, for things like that, like, for example, in prepping for this, it was hugely helpful. You have all these services, and you got to go visit this bucket and log in. And it's like, ugh. And I just was like, go bring it all together. Do it all. So it went and pulled out all the cockamamie links. It went to your weird database website, pulled everything in, it grabbed everything, and then helped me prep. And then I said on top of it, again, I wish somebody would have me on a show just to talk about triangulation because it's been so powerful. It's like triangulate all the things they want to talk about with how I work and what I do. Like, don't just guess something. A phrase I've started using, oh my God, you guys will love this. A phrase I started using, incurious greps. I hate incurious greps. That is when your LLM doesn't bother to follow instructions. It searches for something and then gets really excited about the first thing that it finds. It's an incurious grep. You're not helping me. I know. I have several. I have the Arnold Robbins O'Reilly book. I'm very aware of the way that you can find things on a computer. That is incurious. For you to just grab the first thing you find, like, is this it? And you're like, no, is this, no. And it's just so frustrating to get it to understand, like, no, you have all the instructions you need. You have all the tools that you need. You honestly have all the permissions you need to do this stuff on my behalf. What is a bummer to me is then having to feel like I need to provoke you to keep doing that. What was the point we were going to finish on this?
Well, another piece of this is I think the unnecessary complexity that AI generates. It's like if you ask it what time it is, it says, well, let me show you how to build a watch.
Right. I can build that skill for you. No, just to finish though, I was getting ready for this. That's what it was. And it was really super helpful. And I said, like I do, I was just able to go in and with my mouth typing, just say, make this a project. It knows what a project is. There's projects and sub-projects.
Sorry.
Is this it? Steven, you want Bell?
That's it. I got it.
You said ding.
That's it. Ding.
But it was tremendously helpful because again, in that case, well, Inbox Zero came from a different time and had a different set of interests and constraints and was occasionally slightly misunderstood. But like one thing that does stay the same is like the thing that made Inbox Zero to me important and made it titular, if you like, is that like it's the amount of attention that's still in your inbox when you don't want to be in your inbox and you are or will or should be doing something else. And I think for a time in the Inbox Zero days anyway, it was that feeling of like, I just know there's a bomb waiting for me in there. Like, what is in there? But now think about what a rich data source. And in terms of the whole like curiosity and like who this is good for, like, or imagination, as you said, David. I've been preparing my whole life for this. I've been leaving this trail of stuff for my entire life. I've had text files and all these different things. It's just now, it only took the tiniest bit of imagination to go, well, why aren't those guys all pals and talking to each other? Like, so, I mean, but it started as simple as like, show me people in the cast of The Crown who were also on Doctor Who, which was really fun. And it's really amusing to me. But then it became something more like, I'll just put it in this format. Go find that guy from The Thing that one time.
Yeah.
All right. It's just, I'm giving you that as a pattern. That's not what I'm saying. But how about this? I'll bet you dimes to donuts, might be kind of old. I bet I could get a pretty good gauge pretty quickly on when David and I first met at Macworld. And it would find that through a lot of things. It would find all its information that it has about David. Again, 30 sources of information. It would find all of our old emails and see our various conversations. Yeah. There's a pretty good chance it would find photos of us together because it has access to my photos. I have something called, I think it's called Pi, is it called Pi Object? I've got a thing that identifies all of my screenshots. It automatically does OCR on all of my screenshots, which are shared between my machines. It's all together. So if I say, what's the deal? Triangulate David Sparks. I'm pretty confident that it would get close enough that I could fill in any last details. How do you find out what your flight was and what it cost? You look at Gmail. How do you find out where that coffee place was? You look at photos. That's what triangulation is. I'm just formalizing that to say, I care about this and I want you to make these connections. And once you've taken the time to set that up, you will find innumerable ways to recontextualize your life and your work in ways that improve both.
I'd be curious, as you maybe use Siri AI once iOS 27 comes out, that triangulation is pretty wild. My friend was on a road trip.
Give me one to try. I'm on 27. Tell me one that you, with your listeners. Tell me one I should try.
Anything like that you would look into your email, like I'll ask it, what's the confirmation number for the hotel, or when did I stay at X hotel, and it'll go into your emails and find
I've heard that can sometimes be scarily, uncannily good.
It is very good. And just to give you a wild example,
did Mike Hurley have one recently that was like completely crazy bank shot about like pulling three things together?
Yes. And so my co-host Jason Aiton, he was on a road trip. His wife was in another car, and he had directions going on his iPhone, and his wife got like taken another direction, and Jason said, put me on a route where I can intercept my wife. And it reached into Find My.
That sounds like the logline for a Netflix show.
But with Find My, because they share location, Siri AI knew the location.
It's baked in. It knows it's
and maps. He had everything. And he even would do things like, I need in 2 hours, find me a place that has more than 3 options of food to eat so I can stop.
Yeah.
And so on a road trip, it can take, find the current location, use the maps information, find multiple places, plus location of other people in your Find My. Like, that triangulation is wild because it's so hard to even think, like, what do I do with this? But
it's the actual practical culmination of that kind of, let's be honest, BS that Craig does during dub things. It's like, I decided to do a kayaking trip with our button designer. You're like,
yeah.
Oh, let me guess, it's a lady with giant pants. Okay, fine, whatever. This is Myriad Lavender, and we've been planning a kayak trip together. And, and then we can do that, and we can share it to Pages. And you're like, what you're describing here, though, is the real deal. I'm not going to do it now, but like I'm pretty sure. I'm curious about what I could discover about like relationships with you guys. I use that phrase again, bank shot, which is obviously a term from billiards, but I frequently use bank shot to talk about trying to make a point. It's kind of allied to that idea of putting a hat on a hat. Like sometimes a bank shot when you're trying to make a point with somebody is really difficult because there's 2 different bumpers you need to hit. But I think also Siri AI is capable so far of some very interesting bank shots.
Well, it's just a different kind of context, right? Mm-hmm. The kind of stuff you're doing with Codex has all these text files you've been building forever, and it has a ton of context that Siri really doesn't have. But Siri has access to everything on your phone, to the extent it gets made available. And that is also a rich context. And we just got to kind of figure out where that fits.
But it does take practice. And I just keep coming back to it takes trust. Because the thing is, if we're talking about it, you trust it. I don't mean to put too fine a point on it, but if we're talking about these things, that means we trust them on some level. Here's the thing. If we didn't trust these things, we wouldn't be working with them. And the minute we stop trusting them, in my case, like I say, the minute it's sort of stopped realizing that it works for me and has the job to help me do my job, at that point, then it's like, well, what am I paying you for? I no longer wish to speak to my lamp because my lamp is not responding to me in a way I find satisfying.
So speaking of trust, I'm glad you just said that. You mentioned smart home before. And I recently convinced David to come over back to the Apple Home ecosystem. And so you're tired of talking to your lamp. Where are you at right now with the smart home? You're shaking your head right now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Where are you at? What do you use as anything?
As it happened, the third worst massive data loss that I've had with an LM. One time it borked all of my permissions on my entire Mac, and that bummed me out. It took a while to rebuild. But another huge one is one day it accidentally deleted all of my hue settings. So basically it could kind of remember that lamps existed. It lost all of my scenes. It lost all of that stuff. It lost all that. And I have a thing underway to try and start rebuilding that. But I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything new to add. The people, you talk about in the different, whatever they're called, the foundations or the ecosystems, the OSs, like HomeKit. Well, yeah. HomeKit. Whatever you think of HomeKit, the primary way you interact with HomeKit is through an app called Home. That is embarrassing. It is an embarrassing app. It's no matter where you use it, it's an embarrassing app. Of course, it's especially embarrassing to use on a Mac, where it doesn't seem to understand what the escape key is for. There's no sense of multiple selections. I mean, when I was on Yahoo Mail in 2003, I could multiple select emails. I can't select a bunch of the same kind of light. I can't filter by a certain light. Do you realize I have a whole page of just apps I bought to make HomeKit almost work for a while? And so I end up running something like, and some of these are actually really good if you want some hot tips. Home Care is really good. Home Care's on iOS, and that will like go and like run down a lot of the obvious like stuff that's broken scenes. Home Pass is pretty cool. It's a lot of work, but okay, let's pause a minute. Like, how do we feel about shortcuts? It's really not that great for anybody. How do we think of HomeKit? Well, I'm so sorry, Cupertino. Everything that Apple makes works fine as long as you don't really use it. If you really use it, you run into limitations. If you use Apple TV as much as I use Apple TV, you would be embarrassed with the product. Oh, in particular, here's one. If you are at ABC, Disney, Capital Cities, Marvel, like whoever makes that Hulu app that's been on life support for a year, embarrassing. I would never go back to my home until I had made Hulu work in some way. All just ridiculously embarrassing. And I say this at some conference because y'all like to, people out there, not you guys, but your nerdy listeners like to talk about like who's the alpha nerd. And like, I could care less about any of these ecosystems. To me, it's just not interesting. To me, it's just like reading a magazine about scaffolding magazines. Like how much more infrastructure do you need? Like just go make something cool. But I keep running butt up against home. So like I want a way to charge my scooter and have it turn off after an hour. And every way I've tried to do that with shortcuts, including with talking to it, it starts a timer on my phone for 1 hour, which of course will just be flawless in terms of connectivity. Even though I started that in this different area of the property, I'm sure it'll work out fine. No, it doesn't. It just dies, like processes die.
At risk of, I don't want to walk into do you use a smart plug for that, or how are you trying to do that?
I use an Eve energy plug, power strip.
And that's one of the things, like with lights, you can have it turn off after a certain amount of time after it turns on. But with a smart plug,
I've tried all the clever things.
You did the weights.
Oh, friend, have me back on just you and me. Let David go do his work. But here's the thing. What I want is a guarantee. It's real simple, which is that the battery on, this is so boring. The battery on my scooter is old, and it's difficult to replace. It's somewhat costly to replace, but mostly it's difficult to replace, and I don't want to break my scooter. So the problem is, on this kind of scooter that I have, after a while, the battery regulation is off, and it doesn't know how charged it is. And so if I plug it in overnight, it will overcharge. And for the first half mile I ride it, it'll keep trying to brake and stop because the battery's overpowered. It thinks it's like basically going downhill 1,000,000 miles an hour. So my solution to that, my hack for that in the meantime, is to charge it for small amounts of time that don't top it off. Well, Merlin, that seems like a pretty blunt instrument. Yeah, I've tried to go and is there any kind of a power gauge that can tell me when is the power being passed? Like, and I can go through all this stuff. And even Eve, which is their products are amazing and their software is incredible. Like Eve is the gold standard to me for so much of this stuff. Yeah. But what it's come down to is the only way I can get this thing to work in the way I think I need it to work is to have it set a timer on my phone. And then hopefully it remembers to turn it off in 45 minutes. Who is that for? And was that designed by the same person that made the HomeKit lozenges? Like,
yeah, that's like one of the few. The one problem you just talked about. I'm just poking around in the Home app. There is not an easy way to do that with a smart plug, and it's unfortunate because a lot of the brands like Eve, like the Eve Energy, has all this data. It has all this
Every
data
time I say it, I have
app.
to say it like Wall-E.
Eve.
Classify.
But like you're saying, it's not surfaced in the Home app specifically. So yeah, that's fair enough.
I'll show you the one I've got. But
have you looked at like Home Assistant and some of the other platforms?
Yeah, I ran Home Assistant. Oh, boy, I'm sorry. See, why do we end on sad things?
We'll do a lightning round of all the apps that you mentioned that I need to go back and write.
All right, I'll get that coffee. Yeah, I did Home Assistant in pre-LLM days, and Home Assistant was really cool. I was using it. I had one Home Assistant that worked for, and your listeners know what that is?
Yeah.
They're familiar with that class of services, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had them running on a Synology at my house and a Synology at my office. To cut a long story short, one of the problems with my LLM was it had lost the ability to know that it was wrong and how it was wrong. I had to go find out when my LLM was wrong and tell it that it was wrong and then try to fix it to not be wrong. My Home Assistant was so janked up by HomeKit that I could not even tell what problem at what layer was happening. because I don't know if you guys have ever gotten this, but this is along the lines of those intermittent bugs. You get something like, whoa. Like sometimes like 3 times a week, it takes 4 minutes for the lights to turn off. And you're like, huh. And they always turn off in this order. Or like, huh, that's kind of weird. There'll be these weird things that happen. You like overlook it. It eventually got to where it was not functional. And it was so not functional, I could not tell at what layer it was breaking. By which I mean, I don't think it was the Synology, but was it the Synology package? Probably not. Like, was it happening at the level of Home Assistant? I mean, it's possible. I would say a much more likely culprit is whatever hacky thing is having it work with HomeKit. And so finally I had to get rid of. The point is, I'm going to bring it back eventually if I figure out value. But yeah, I got rid of Home Assistant just because even though it was the coolest part of the stack, it was another thing that I had to troubleshoot that I didn't have any control over.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, the problem for me was my family hated it. They wanted the simple Apple Home stuff. They just want.
Yeah, you gotta always keep that in mind. Who
And
the
they're
audience
not
is.
they're not interested in turning off
They
the
don't wanna
charger
talk to
after
the
an
lamp.
hour. They just want the lights to turn on, and
Talk to the lamp because the hand's not listening.
All right, lightning round. You mentioned several apps. Coax. What is that? And also whatever other apps you want to mention.
Sure. I heard about this. Believe it or not, I don't listen to every episode of the talk show, but I do see John Gruber's stuff in my feed, and I saw it mentioned there, and then I think I saw one other person. It's coaxtheapp.com. And for gentlemen of a certain age, and ladies, I want you to set your mind back to 1990, 2, 3, 4. You turn on your cable box, you go to channel 3, and you see a listing of the channels that are available, right? You'll see like channel 3 is what you're watching now, or in a hotel room, maybe, like, with that weird, disgusting remote. You're looking through and you say, oh, channel 4 is like local ABC, and then this and that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
This is an app and service that runs on all the Apple things, where you point it at, in my case, a collection of Plex things, movies and TV series that are all, correctly named, metadata, whole nine, and served over the Plex service. And basically, this allows you to do the equivalent of channel surfing on whatever's on your Plex without any weird. Stephen, if you go look at my internet, you can probably see some screen grabs of it from recently. But
yeah, I'm looking at the app right now. That's cool.
I mean, like, I really here's I think a pretty good example. If I had this in say 2010, it would be pretty cool for me to say, identify all the movies of mine that are Pixar movies and have a channel that just plays Pixar movies randomly. Or please play in order, a marathon, they call it, of all the episodes of Curious George. Make sure Caillou touches nothing. No Caillou. No Caillou.
Stay away. Yes.
And that neighbor, keep away from that neighbor.
Yeah.
I don't like that guy. What's his name, Mr. Frumble? No, but anyway, coax, yeah, and you basically pointed at your media collection, and it makes you something where you can just surf like it's the 90s through your own media without. Because sometimes, again, I say it's not just what I watch, but how I watch it. There's times where I just want to have lean back mode and just hang out and flip and just watch episode 3 of Chernobyl.
I watched that whole miniseries. It was amazing. Any other apps?
There's a cost to lies, Stephen. Lies have a cost.
Any
The
other
meter
apps
only
for
goes
you?
to 3.6 Rontgen.
I can't do it. I can't quote it. Sorry.
You're not gonna do the voice.
That was good. Any other apps you found recently that you have loved? Maybe on your iPhone?
Sure.
Or anything?
I mean, gosh, I always forget to prepare for this part. One that I discovered. I forget how, but Typora, Typora. It's a Markdown editor for Mac that is really it's Markdown. Markdown is death. Like, talking about Markdown is so boring. I am very close to asking an LLM to estimate by year on a graph how many .md files exist.
Just in the world?
Well, think about it. Think about 2004 versus now. I bet you there's a lot more .md files than in 2000. Think about that.
Sure.
He never could have known that it would be like the way that we run so much of our world. Typora is right in the sweet spot for me. I don't need the super fancy portfolio things. I don't need all that performance. It's just a really pretty Markdown editor that has one key click to toggle between, rendered and raw. And it's got great shortcuts, and it does stuff I love. Like, it has an outline in the left rail with all of your H's in it. Have either of you ever used Typora?
I'm a Bear guy. I've not used Typora, but it looks beautiful.
Bear's very editorial, and people have strong feelings one way or the other. But I'm not here to recommend that, because it's like it's like choosing your personal hygiene products. Like it's very personal how and why you do things, but it's so instrumental for me to be able to constantly say, like, for example, my LLMs know that whenever I type O, that means open this in the default app. Whenever I type OF, that means open whatever we're talking about in the folder and the Finder.
I keep trying these bespoke markdown apps, but I just always end up back in
I mean, it's everybody's different. Just the Typora is like, I've never spent $15 so fast. It does stuff like really long, thorny things. I'm sure you've run into, David, with publishing. Like, wouldn't it have been neat? Like, up till now, like, if you wanted to publish something as an EPUB or you wanted to do all these things, you still got to have like a folder full of images and it has to travel with it. Is it going to be an RTFD or what is this going to be? This has like 3 different ways you can embed images. I mean, it'll do the like Brett Terpstra thing where it makes it a bunch of code. It'll also do the thing where it puts it in a dot file that goes with it. It's very, very clever. And then a big part of my day-to-day workflow that I'm very proud of, but people won't notice, but I'm very proud of, is I have a domain name that hangs on a subdomain, hangs on my Synology. And I have the ability to very quickly post anything to that and have a shared link. And it's all done through Cloudflare. The entire thing was set up through Cloudflare. Syracuse told me about that a few months ago. And I've got a Cloudflare site that just runs on my Synology. If I've got an image I want to share, I don't put it on Bitbucket or Pixelbud or whatever. I put it on my site, and it's share.contiguous.me. And anyway, stuff like that is so powerful. And all those, what do they say, Unix small pieces loosely joined? Like all these little pieces start interacting together. And again, I just really want to underscore this. We'll talk about apps more. It's so important to build the confidence, to build the credibility, because I'm going to make better connections functionally if I can trust that the tools will do the thing that I expect. That's how I learned to love Quicksilver. You didn't have to look when you typed into Quicksilver. You just typed in, it did a thing, and that was it. It's a no-look app. There's not that many no-look apps anymore, and I want this to be a no-look. I want these LLMs to be a no-look app for how I live and work. And when I can pull those pieces together, I find it extremely satisfying and stress-reducing and life-affirming.
I'm looking at Typora website here now. You got me looking.
Yeah, no, I got it in there.
Yeah.
I think it's got a freebie. It's like $15. You guys are rich.
Yeah.
It's I really like it a lot, and it's got stuff I love like highlight. If you hit Command-Shift-H, it highlights it with yellow. That's all there is to it. And it does mermaid charts. And so all that stuff, the reason I was saying that was like, I'll build these different things like what I call dossiers. I wish people love my dossiers. It breaks my heart. I can just go, that's an MD file that it builds. It builds it locally on like production, like locally, pushes it live. We just keep updating it after it goes live. But all along the way, I'm opening things in Typora and just getting the rough sense of what it looks like. But it's, again, the small pieces loosely joined, like the Typora part solves the problem of it's kind of a bummer sometimes to type in a text editor. It's not fun necessarily. I mean, if you're like Syracuse, he doesn't use Markdown. Syracuse has always and will always write in HTML. Like he writes HTML. Yeah, longhand. And I respect that, but like that's not my jam. And that's why I like, it's just that all these pieces, when that trust builds and where that integration starts getting into your muscle memory, powerful things can happen. And when you trust more and more, then you can yell stuff to the dingus and it'll just fix stuff for you.
That's cool.
From your lips. All right, gang. We are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. Merlin, where should people go to keep up with you?
Oh, just you know what? Go to your public library.
Okay.
That's good.
They probably have Blu-rays.
Yeah,
That's true.
I recently set up a workflow. All I have to do is drop a Blu-ray into my Ripper. I didn't do this. My LLM did. But now I drop a Blu-ray into my Ripper, and when I come back an hour later, it's ejected because the entire thing has been ripped by my Synology using MKV and put onto Infuse as a disk image. Go to your library.
Wait, you just dropped that. Hold on, because I use Make MKV. I have a Blu-ray.
Stephen,
Wait
when
a
we're
minute.
done, I will, if you want, my friend, because we're friends now. You can't not deny me anymore. I will have it write you up a shorty if you tell me what you want.
That would be amazing. Okay,
Dude,
great. Okay.
dude.
Yeah, you guys do that too. You have your AI prepare briefs for people, like
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
That's so basically Stephen, when you mentioned that, like moving all the family business, that's what I had texted to Alex. Because what I'll say to people is, just tell me what, like if I can't guess it, like tell me what you want to know. Like it's just so great to be able to say, for Syracuse, explain how I do triangulation in 6 bullets.
Yeah.
Now, wait. There's a lot of if you really think about it, there's a lot of information in that a lot of you are going to gloss past because you're not into triangulation. For Syracuse, do not be afraid to lean into your understanding of the technical details of this. You're not going to piss him off by using jargon. Do that. It's for Syracuse, and it's this long. So constrain it to that long. And like, if you start doing that for people, you can just be like, those days are gone of like, well, like I have so many thousands of manuals downloaded for things. But for something like we have an emergency phone in the car, one of those Garmin like emergency SOS phones. And like, I'm in the process right now of building like an index card site, because my family never bothers to learn these things or test these things. And I worry about that. Like, if you have a phone in the car, how about we test it? An index card size way to write this in such a way that a person who's currently undergoing an emergency will know how to use this.
That's good.
And that those constraints matter. But again, it's all based on trust. It's based on the tool chain. It's knowing that this thing understands who John Syracuse is and why you would care. But yeah, hit me on my burner, and I'll send you the info.
It's coming, man. All right. Thanks, sponsors, Ecamm, Backblaze, and 1Password. For more Power User subscribers, stick around. We're going to do a Mac Power Users book club with Merlin. Can't wait to get it started. See you next week.
Buck, buck.